What if I fail? If you're thinking about starting a business, that question has probably crossed your mind more than once. It's exciting to imagine life as a business owner, more freedom, flexibility, financial upside. In fact, I was looking at some data recently from the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. And this is a report that comes out of Babson College. And they said that more than 80% of Americans see business ownership as both a good career and high status. But when you start thinking about business ownership, the thought may sneak in, what if it doesn't go like I hope? What if I fail? And suddenly this excitement gets drowned out by a wave of anxiety. Well, if that's you, you are not alone because according to the same report, 44% of Americans said fear of failure would stop them from starting a business. And although we like to think we're a more entrepreneurial country, that's only a little better than the global number of 49%. Now, if you knew you couldn't fail, my guess is most of you out there would already be business owners. And my other hypothesis is that if you knew you could survive a failure and be okay on the other side, a lot of you might also be willing to move forward, even without a guarantee of success. And so those two realizations give us two primary ways that we can address the fear of failure. One is to look at ways that you can increase your odds of success. And the second one is to decrease your downside risk of failure. So I want to give you my top 3 high-level tips each for increasing your odds and decreasing your downside. And I want to start with increasing your odds. So my number 1, test before you invest big. I remember talking to one of our clients, Spiro Egdos. He had a great story. He sat outside a grocery store with a clipboard talking to shoppers as they were exiting. And it was only once he had 60 people signed up for this service that didn't exist in his community that he decided, okay, it's worth it for me to invest this $100,000 in a custom truck that can do these garbage bin cleanings. So that's my number 1, test before you invest big. Number 2, take the hard out of the hard work. I believe that one of the best ways to increase your odds of success is to find a business where what you're naturally good at is what the business needs to grow and make money. Why? Because you're not going to mind doing the things that lead to success, and you'll likely do them well enough to succeed. And number 3 is commit to answering the question of how would I? I see so many people let the fear of failure stop them before they've actually done any of the work to consider how they would do it. So instead of wrestling with this question of should I not, commit to figuring out how would you move forward. You can always decide not to. You can always decide to stop. The worst case scenario is you invest some time in exchange for this ability to walk away without regret. But the best case scenario is you actually uncover a path to ownership where the odds are stacked enough in your favor where you feel like this is a smart bet for me. Now, recently I was talking to a client about their experience in evaluating franchise models. He had decided a franchise was the path he wanted to go down. And he vetted something like 14 franchise concepts and got really deep with a handful of them. And he told me throughout the process, he was really fearful and skeptical. He was so worried and guarded about the people that were trying to sell him something. So he felt like he had to protect himself. And so what he would do is he would find the franchisees that were doing the worst in these systems, and he would call them up and he would ask them to share all the dirty laundry about what wasn't working, what the franchisor wasn't doing to support them. And one day he was actually talking to one of the successful franchisees. That's because every franchisor is going to connect you with, 2 or 3 people that are running those franchises successfully. And he's sharing this due diligence strategy with the successful owner. And the guy asked him, are you trying to find all the ways you could fail, or are you trying to figure out how to be successful? That hit him like a gut punch because fear will keep you stuck in all the ways it won't work. And the reality is it might not, but you won't even know until you've done the work to clarify how. All right, now let's move on to my top 3 for decreasing the downside. Number 1, keep your cash. I started Guidant Financial with a partner, 2 laptops, and $3,500 we put on credit cards. Now, failure wasn't going to set us back much more than our time because we didn't put a lot of money in to start. Instead, we focused on how we could start generating revenue early. But the reality is there are lots of other ways to limit your investment. I've seen people pre-sell products. I've seen people raise money. And there are many other opportunities to think about how you can keep your cash. In fact, check out my video, Extending the Runway, if you want to look at the framework that I've built for how to think through that. Number 2, for decreasing your downside, don't quit your day job or have your spouse keep theirs. I remember interviewing a guy named Jason Bowman. He now owns 24 Sport Clips franchises, but after he opened his first Sport Clips franchise, he went back to work for 6 years because this was in the middle of the Great Recession. So his wife ran the day-to-day. He went back to a corporate job. And only 6 years later was the business at a place that it had enough momentum that he felt good letting go of this day job to scale the business. And if it hadn't worked out, he was prepared to stay in the job and let his wife find something else she could be passionate about. So don't quit your day job. Number 3, build your boundaries before you begin. One of my favorite exercises to do with aspiring business owners is to have them play out the worst case scenario. This is really simple. You just write down all the bad things that could happen. And then you actually decide in advance how far you're willing to go. So for example, when you play through all the implications of, losing your money or whatever, you might say, hey, if I can't pay my mortgage, I'm done. That's the point at which I'll get a job. That is my line in the sand. What that does, though, is it can turn these open-ended fears into clear boundaries because, yes, obviously you plan to be successful, but you'd be surprised how much peace of mind you can have when you also have a plan for failure that's livable. That way, when it's time to quit or pivot to an alternate plan. And instead of being in this place of hypervigilance all the time, you can focus on what you need to do to move the business forward. So here's the point to all of this. Fear of failure is normal. And that's especially true when you haven't even done the work to understand what it would take. It doesn't have to stop you. If you focus on exploring ways you can increase your odds, and even looking at ways you can decrease the downside of failure, you might actually be able to see a clear path to this new life as a successful business owner, one with more flexibility and freedom and financial reward. So I wish you the best of luck as always. If you got value out of this video, please like it, share it with someone else you think it might benefit. Cheers all.